everyone, welcome. Today I'm going to tell you a bit about the web, not so much about crypto, not so much, I will definitely tell you about NFTs, but I really want to start back from maybe 20 years ago. I was actually here in 2008, that's 14 years ago, at a decentralized identity summit, and there was already a bunch of events happening in the industry before crypto, before Bitcoin, that were thinking about, okay, what's the state of identity? What's the state of the distributed web? How can we make the web better? Because let's face it, the web is in a pretty bad state. I live in the US. Every time I come to Europe, I'm astonished. I mean, we already get the banner ads in the US, but here it's like 10 times worse. Like every website I go to starts with like clicking 7 buttons saying that I'm waiving all rights to any kind of thing that I can do. So like my kidneys, sure, have them. Just let me watch the website. And it's something that we probably all realize, but I'd say normies actually even feel more of this. It's very frustrating to use the internet today. And it's also frustrating not just because of the banner ads, because of all of that mess, but it's also frustrating because the web is actually doesn't have a lot of information anymore. It's a lot of noise, it's a lot of distraction, it's sometimes very stressful to do this. There's a bunch of studies that show that social media, for example, is something that actually creates depression for a lot of teenagers and further. So really in a bad shape of the web. And obviously, this is coming from, I mentioned the cookie banners, clickbait, but also something that I think we're all well aware of in that community, but that most people don't realize is like this idea of the surveillance economy, the idea that everything you do online is being watched, not by people, I mean, maybe some people, but also by machines, and then they basically feed us more of the same, I was going to say shit, but more of the same stuff that we keep consuming that really creates kind of an unhealthy relationship with our information source, because at the same time, the web is the -- way most people around the world are getting informed. And I've been thinking also that, well, you know, all of these things, at least people get paid on the web. Well, not really. If you think about, I mean, this is an example of what's happening here for Spotify, which is the #1 streaming website for music, and I think a bunch of large offices here. A creator that actually puts music on Spotify need 314 streams to make $1. And I did the math basically to see, okay, how much would it take to create $1,000, which seems like a very basic kind of monthly revenue. Well, it would be 9 months worth of continuing listening to a specific song, like all days and night. 9 months, okay, $1,000. So the web is also not really in a state where it pays creators well, and yet we keep hearing about, you know, Google, Facebook, Apple making billions and billions of dollars. So really there is something wrong where the big companies are making tons of money, good for them, but all indie, smaller creators, which the web was built for in the end, are actually pretty much starving at this point. And Spotify is in the middle of the road here. Apple is arguably doing a bit better because now the first two are Apple. But if you go down to the French, and I'm French, the French player here, it's abysmal. Like, you know, it's all of these things are pretty bad. Well, you could say, well, at least it's free. At least we don't pay for that stuff. Well, that's not true either. The top here is actually coming from Brave, the web browser that I think some of us might be using here. And I reset it in July, so it's actually not a lot of data. It blocked a bunch of trackers and ads. And then I looked at the number in the middle. It's like, okay, 6.61 gigabytes. That's a lot of bandwidth. That's actually a lot of stuff. And I looked at the same time, and you might not see because it's kind of small, but like the price of bandwidth, because believe it or not, we actually pay for bandwidth. Like this is a thing that you pay when you get a subscription, you know, a mobile subscription to the internet, or even like DSL or fiber at home. You pay for that bandwidth. And in Germany, I took the numbers from Germany. There's a website where it records all of the price of bandwidth around the world. In Germany, the average price per gigabyte is $2.67. So basically, these 6.61 gigabytes of bandwidth saved by Brave, if I'd used Chrome or Safari or any other web browser, well, would have cost me about $17. So that free stuff that I consume online actually is not free. I pay for this because I get all of these crappy ads that are being served to me and all of the thing that comes to this. If you also think about this thing, there's a bunch of studies, and I'm not publishing them here, but like these websites keep getting heavier and heavier. Like 25 years ago, again, I'm old, the average website was, a couple kilobytes, maybe not kilobytes, tens of kilobytes. Boris can pretty attest. And now it's almost getting to the megabytes. Like every single website downloads a ton of data. Well, most of that stuff is actually not more text. It's more JavaScript. It's more trackers. It's more ads. It's more heavy stuff. And these heavy stuff, well, that has to be parsed by your device. So we're all consuming the phone, the internet on the phone. You've seen this, right? You spend the day on your mobile phone browsing the web. At the end of the day, the battery dies. Well, that has to be charged. That energy, you're going to pay for this. Similarly, we change phones every 2 years. They don't actually get slower. It's the same device. It's the same machine. Like it's not like the silicon dies in it. It's just the same thing, except that it keeps having to eat and digest more and more stuff. And that stuff means that you're going to change phones every 2 years. And again, it's another $500 to $1,000 every 2 years on a new device. So thinking about the web as being free is actually kind of a lie. You just pay for this, but you don't realize that you pay for all of that thing. So thinking further, I was like, well, where did that start? Like, what happened? And I'm sure you're all hopefully familiar with HTTP 4.4. When you go to a web page, like it doesn't exist. You've seen that, right? Yes? Yeah, so there's actually a bunch of statuses. There's multiple families. The 400 family, in which 4.4 was called client error. It basically says the client, the person on the other side of the computer, needs to do something better. So 4.4 is like you need to type the URL better. You type the wrong thing. It doesn't exist. There is actually an HTTP status called 402. And 402, 4.4 is not found. 402 is called payment required. And you say, oh, well, that's interesting. I didn't know the web initially had the idea of requiring people. And I say initially it was like 93, so 30 years. Had a way to get people to pay for things. When you look at the specification for this, you will find it's the shortest specification of all of the 400 status codes, and actually all of the status codes. It says reserved for later use. Basically, if you go back 30 years, the web had the idea of a payment built in, but it was too complicated, I guess. I think it was. And they said, we'll do this later. The problem is, in the meantime, all of these websites that were built needed to monetize. And how did they monetize? Well, they started to invent the banner ad. The first banner ad actually was invented in 95, if I'm correct. It had a crazy click-through rate. Do you know what click-through rate means? It's basically the number of times somebody clicks on an ad based on the number of people that see the ad. That click-through rate was 75%. So basically, 3 out of 4 people that saw the ad clicked on it. Right now, it's like 0.01 if you're lucky on some website. So at that time, first banner ad, like, cool, this is really good. But that's kind of the beginning of the descent. That's the beginning of why the web got wrong. Because quickly, once you say, okay, we get paid every time people click, let's put more of these. So you put like one there, one there, one there, one there, one in the middle. Okay. Let's actually make sure that they appear. So that's how the pop-up, I'm sure you remember the days of the pop-up. We still have some of these, but like there was a point where you would open a web page, and there's actually 7 other web pages that open at the same time. They're all ads. It's like just a nightmare. That's how most websites realize, okay, well, if we can't really add too many, let's have the user click to go refresh more. And so the slideshows are the things like, okay, cool, click to see the next, click, click, click. All of these become, just show more and more ads. And so that's how the attention, oh, sorry, I clicked too fast here. Can I go back? Yes, whoo. That's how the attention economy kind of start to emerge. And again, that was like, 20 plus years ago. At the same time, some smart people started to realize like, if we know more about the user, if we know more about what they're looking for online, well, they'll click more on ads because we can show them more targeted ads. And that's how when you do a search for a pair of shoes once in your life, randomly on your phone, then for the next 6 months, you're going to see the same pair of shoes on every single ad. This is so annoying, but that's the tracking thing. That's basically the attention economy that I mentioned earlier, is basically the idea that since we can't monetize at the protocol level, all applications are going to try to capture as much of your data and then serve you the same shit over and over again, so until you buy the pair of shoes. And actually, when you buy the pair of shoes, for some reason, now they can't track anymore. They don't need to know that you bought the pair of shoes, so they're going to keep showing you the pair of shoes. The same that you have here, you're going to see them on the screen over and over again. So really, that's kind of the origin and sin of the web. What's interesting, though, is like, I'm definitely not the only one thinking about this, and there's actually a lot of, I was going to say, smarter people at a bunch of companies that have realized this, and they've started to move away from this attention-driven economy to what I would call the membership economy. And so we start to see all of these names are pretty something that you're familiar with. The idea that, okay, these ads actually don't work well. They don't pay creators that well. They're really annoying to people. They are annoying the regulators as well, which is what we see all these banner ads. Maybe there's a simpler model, and that simpler model is really, really wild. It's like, what if we ask people to pay for stuff? It's kind of like a thing that it's kind of blowing my mind, that it became a surprise, but that's actually a lot of what these companies ended up doing. You're pretty all familiar with Patreon. It's a platform, it's what it is, but in practice, It offers creators, say, you know what, don't try to sell ads to people. Just ask your fans, maybe your 1,000 true fans, to pay you, $1, $3, $5 a month so that they can, listen to your music, maybe watch some pictures that you post, get a t-shirt from you. But that's really kind of the membership thing. You become a member of that specific creator. New York Times, pretty familiar with this, big newspaper. They are now closing on 10 million subscribers, which is crazy because you think about 10 years ago, they had 0. They went from a business model where it's mostly ads online, at least, and when I say mostly, it was only ads, to a point where now they make almost half of the revenue through subscription by people to access the content. It's the paywall. I know it's frustrating from a user perspective, but in the end, it actually makes sense. If you really want to read this, why don't you pay for this? Substack, the newsletter tool, kind of similar. Another one that's kind of interesting is Amazon Prime. So we all pretty are familiar with Amazon, the big, I think you have this in Germany as well, big kind of retailer. And they realized like a membership could access content, so they have Amazon Prime where you get access to videos, but they can also offer some benefits, some perks. So if you're part of the group of people that is cool people, members of Amazon Prime, and I'm laughing because you're not necessarily that cool if you have Prime, you get access to certain extra features as part of this. And believe it or not, actually, until 2 years ago, if you look at the profits of Amazon, this was exactly the revenues that Prime was making. So if you divide the number of Prime members by the Prime membership, which was roughly $10 a month, you get the profits of Amazon. So Amazon, this massive company, the only profit that they're making is actually from the fact that they sell memberships, not from the fact that they sell goods to people. Does that make sense? You might think, well, what's the relationship with NFTs? Well, a membership, we start to see this in the crypto space as well. We start to see like crowds of people, and I haven't seen that many here, which is good. People wearing, the Bored Apes hoodie or the Bored Apes hats. Like, I'm a proud member of this crowd of people. I'm not. I'm a bit sad I'm not, or actually I'm sad I was not at some point. But basically, the membership primitive in the crypto space could be thought of as NFTs. Like if you have the NFT, you're one of the cool people. And if you had this Bored Ape thing, maybe you're one of the member of the Bored Ape crowd. If you have a CryptoPunk, you're a member of this. And really you can think of, okay, a non-fungible token is a membership card. It's the same as your library card from 50 years ago. It's the same as your maybe Amazon Prime account. It's the same as your ticket to a conference, because if you think of a ticket to a conference, an NFT, a non-fungible token, is a membership to the specific conference itself. So NFTs start to look like the right thing to represent these membership in the Web3 space, and maybe in the web altogether, because now my wallet is connected to a website. I can easily identify and prove that I have an Amazon Prime membership when I connect to Amazon. I don't need to log in with my Amazon account. Maybe I can just connect my wallet and they see I have the Prime NFT. Okay, they'll give me Prime benefits. But then NFTs are also not ideal. One of the big things that NFTs have, which I think everything has on the crypto, is like they're forever. So pay once for the Bored Ape, and then have it forever, and have the benefits forever. For a creator, that is not really a good business. Like if I'm making music, I'm creating my little NFT, selling it. I'm selling it once. Maybe I'm actually selling a ton of them. Good for me. But then I have to make music the rest of my life, and nobody's going to pay me ever. So the NFTs being forever is kind of not an ideal thing in the context of membership. Your Netflix account, you pay every month, and there's a reason for this, because they keep producing more shows, and their costs actually don't stop the minute they make one shows. So we need to have better kinds of NFTs. NFTs, for example, that have an expiration date. A way to say, okay, cool, you're going to have this. It's in your wallet. It's there as long as you want to keep it in your wallet. But at some point, you're going to have to renew. You're going to have to extend that membership to keep accessing the content. And if we write new things, if we make new music, if we take new pictures, if we create new software, you're going to have to pay up again for that thing. Another thing that NFTs have, okay, I'm going to maybe next to the same. The problem, though, is like each NFT is different right now. So even though we have ERC 721, actually, that's a question. Do people know what that is, the W3C? Some, yes. World Wide Web Consortium, I don't want to say only old people are raising their hands, but I worry that's the case. It's basically it's kind of the DAO of the web, kind of. It's basically a lot of people coming together in a room and say, hey, okay, cool. This is how HTTP, the thing that you type when you put an URL on a website, HTTP, this is how it should work. This is how we're going to do videos together. This is how we're going to do authentication. You've heard of OAuth. That's actually not quite W3C, even though it's involved at this point. It is kind of the thing that this massive, actually pretty small organization out of MIT in the US runs the internet. They say, okay, this is how protocols should work on the internet. And so if we're going to do a protocol for membership that uses NFT, we should start thinking about normalizing it, making it so that it works the same for everyone. And so that's actually what Unlock Protocol, which I'm representing a little bit, is trying to do. It's trying to build, or it actually built a protocol for memberships, an easy way for creators, organizations, brands, conference organizers, and we'll come to this in a second, to create a membership contract, deploying on a blockchain, an EVM blockchain, so from mainnet to Gnosis to Optimism, which is not a blockchain, but an EVM ecosystem, to create a standard way for all memberships so that every single website, every single organization can easily deploy their own membership contract. Tons of use cases, ticketing. Again, we'll come back to this. Media membership, mentioned Netflix, New York Times, these are examples. DAO membership. I think the way we've done DAO is kind of wrong. Like, I don't like the idea of a DAO being something where the richest has more voice than the poorest people in some way. Like, there's many DAOs where it's like, oh, it's just a group of friends having coffee. Why is the richest person deciding what coffee we go to? Like, we're all going to pay for the coffee anyway. So why don't we have something that is kind of membership-based rather than actually be kind of ownership-based in that scenario? Certification credential, like some of you have been to school, you get a diploma, well, that's a membership to your school that you have in your wallet forever. That's something that proved that you attended the thing and that you got a degree. Maybe there's kind of certification that needs to be renewed every year, like the driving license. I don't know about Germany, but in the US, it needs to be renewed every 5 years. That's something that is kind of an expiration date. If you don't renew, well, you can't drive anymore. You need to renew it again. So it's kind of another example of a membership here. Obviously, the digital collectibles, you can have collectibles that have expiration date. You say, okay, cool, this thing is in your wallet. It's going to be alive. Remember Tamagotchi? It's like one of these little games. I mean, you can imagine this membership being alive as a little item in the game for as long as you pay for this. If you stop paying, well, it dies and you can't play the game anymore. And other people in the game might see it as dead, which I think is kind of a fun little application here. I want to finish with a quick demo. So all of you probably had a ticket for the conference. Otherwise, you should tell someone that you shouldn't be here. If you have a ticket to the conference, you actually got an NFT that was sent to your wallet. And what's cool about that NFT is like it's in your wallet now. It is not, of course, it's linked to coming here, but it's going to be in your wallet for as long as you want it. You can actually get rid of it if you want to. But that means that it can give you access to other sites. And so, for example, we built a little chat application. You can just scan this QR code from your device. I'm going to do that as well at the same time as you. And then what's going to be cool here is like you'll be able to drag and drop a QR code inside of your QR code inside of the application here. Or you can even connect your wallet if you have it with you, which might be the case. And then you'll end up on a little basic chat room and write something. And what's really cool about this, from stage. What's really cool about this is like obviously this shows that again, the membership exists in many places. Maybe next year's DappCon, they have a pre-sale period where only the people that came this year can purchase a ticket. And the easiest way to do this is like, hey, connect your wallet. We'll see whether you actually have the NFT in your wallet. Does that make sense? Cool. I see one raised thumb. Thank you very much. This wraps it for today. More than happy to take a few questions, either here or a bit later, if you guys have more personal questions.
We have time for questions if anybody wants to raise their hand, and we'll get a mic down.
No one? Boris, go ahead.
So how do we remind young people of what old people have learned in the past and connect, I think, a lot of people who are only on the web side of things? So, is Unlock a solution, NFT, the hatred out there for even experimenting with some of the things? Do you have some thoughts on how to connect these worlds a little bit better?
I do have a lot of thoughts.
Old, young, crypto, non-crypto.
It's hard. So I think we do mistakes on both sides. And I would claim myself as being on both sides. Like I think on the crypto side, we do a lot of mistakes by, pumping, literally, the projects that are just about making money. Like I do think, one thing that I realized the other day is like, initially, again, going back to HTTP, it was created to transfer files. It was really created for like researchers out of Switzerland to send their paper to somebody else in the US. This is definitely not what the web is today. It was created to transfer files, and now everybody uses it to access applications and kind of run software. I think blockchain is going to be the same. We've initially created blockchain. I wasn't there. I mean, I'm not Satoshi, basically. But people created blockchains to transfer money. I don't think most interactions on blockchain in the future will be about money. It's going to be about exchanging states. Like, yes, you might be buying stuff, but it's not about like, have your own gold, be your own bank, whatever, unbank the banked or whatever kind of crap we see. It's just going to be like the internet. It's been created for a specific technology and then used for a lot more things. And so I think the crypto crowd, I'd say, let's actually chill a little bit on the cryptocurrency aspect of things and show more use cases that are beyond just, okay, cool, we're going to get rich because we have this curve thing that actually has massive yield, and it's like, even I don't understand what that means. So I think we should say on the web, old web people side of things, I think we should also chill on the, we've done this before, kind of things. Like, yeah, we've done it, but it clearly failed. Like, we wouldn't have this massive Facebook, Amazon, Google out there if we actually did succeed building these decentralized open protocols. For better or worse, crypto people have been able to put private keys in the hands of, at this point, tens of millions of people. That was kind of, this is kind of massive adjustment. Like, if you think about private cryptography, this is even older than the web. It's like, 70s shit. And since then, these people have been trying to get people to adopt private key cryptography. I'd say it failed until, maybe for very small use case of PGP, it failed for the largest thing until crypto came around, and all of a sudden a ton of people that had no idea what they were doing started to get private keys, which I guess is a success factor. Does that answer your question? Cool.
What do you think about soulbound tokens?
So I think these are kinds of membership that are non-transferable. So I mentioned the credential use case. This, you don't want to transfer your diploma. I think that would be weird. Or your driver license, I'm drunk, get it from me. No, that'd be bad. So they're a subcase of non-fungible tokens in the same way that I think, and that's actually what we built at Unlock, there's NFTs that are recurring, that have an expiration date. So if you think about NFTs as a primitive, it's great. It's like website that allows you to do many, many different things. There are some that are going to be transferable, some that are not going to be transferable, the soulbound, some that are going to be transferable if some other conditions are met, which I think is maybe even more interesting than the binary option. There's going to be that have an expiration date. There's going to be that have, on-chain metadata, off-chain metadata. There's going to be some that have, are be bought, or some that can only be earned. There's all kinds of NFTs, and I think soulbound is just a subcategory.
Thanks. And basically NFTs, if you compare it with W3C, DIDs and verifiable credentials,
yeah.
If you compare that with the kind of hype around soulbound tokens just because Vitalik said so, and other things like transferable kind of credentials, like you said, a certificate, you could have an NFT. Isn't it just kind of reinventing what already is kind of more or less standardized in the W3C about verifiable credentials?
It is in some way reinventing, but it's also getting more popular. Like if you ask your neighbor that has never heard about technology, they know about NFTs, they probably don't know about verifiable credentials. So that's kind of the point that I was making earlier about like the old people saying, we've done this before. It's like, yes, we have, but we haven't been able to reach the masses. Let's actually try to find mechanism. And to be clear, I'm not dismissing verifiable credential. I do think that actually a good combination of NFTs and verifiable credential is probably the solution that we need to have. Some way to kind of commit credentials onto a chain and then have an NFT in return, I think is pretty the useful model. But again, we need to start moving away from the not invented here syndrome, like I've done this before. Yeah, we might, but the fact is, at this point, NFTs as a primitive is a lot more known, or I don't say popular because it doesn't make sense, but like at least starts to be a lot more accepted than verifiable control.
There's way more blockchain-capable wallets with actual users than any of the DID VC stuff that doesn't really work and has no adoption.
Exactly.
Can you explain the verifiable credential
briefly? It's
the idea a little bit.
It's the idea that instead of having it's basically a description of credentials that you might have that is signed by a bunch of private keys. So think of a diploma to a school as the school has signed something, telling you have earned the thing. And it is not stored.
It sounds like a very general idea.
It's a very general idea, which is why it's a good primitive in that concept. And it's actually a lot more complicated than this, but that would be the high-level idea.
Sign JSON. It's a sign JSON. That's
Sign
JSON file signed by another.
An entity, yeah.
Yeah, I think we're all done for time.
Thanks, everyone.